Welcome to Kaiju Masterclass. We're back in session. I'm Steve Ryfle, and I'm here along with Kyle Byrd, who'll be here with us in a moment. And we're here for a very special interview with filmmaker Ryuhei Kitamura, who has very generously agreed to join us, even though he's right in the middle of production on a new project in Tokyo. Mr. Kitamura is, of course, known to Kaiju fans as the director of Godzilla Final Wars, which is really unlike any other film in the entire Godzilla series. He first really burst onto the scene as a filmmaker with the indie zombie action movie Versus. And over the years since then, he's made numerous films in Japan and in the United States, and his work crosses multiple genres, multiple genre boundaries: action, horror, supernatural, thrillers, animation even. You always know when you're watching a Kitamura film, they are unlike any other. His work has been described as over-the-top, unrestrained, in your face. Welcome, Mr. Kitamura. Do you agree with that description?
Yes, I guess so. Thank you so much.
Well, we're really, really pleased that you can join us, and I think this is going to be a wonderful conversation. So starting off, having just described your films as over-the-top, I saw one reviewer use the term more is more. Your works really have a recognizable director's stamp in terms of action, violence, camera movement, etc. So what would be your own description of a Ryuhei Kitamura film? What are the defining elements of it?
I don't know. I mean, I always try to do something that I've never done before, something that no one ever done before. And I try to always, I don't know if I, success all the time, but I always try to do, be the one only director, so that, I try to do, even though I'm doing this, the kaiju movie or the horror movie or an action movie, I try to put my stamp all over. That's what I'm trying to do all the time.
Thank you again, Mr. Kitamura, for joining us. Sorry I was a minute late, but I'm a fan. It's nice to have you. But I want to ask, I know that you studied film in Australia, which is a little bit of a different road for a filmmaker coming up in Japan. What was your reason for going to Australia to study?
It was very, very simple. I love Mad Max movies. I love Russell Mulcahy movie, Highlander, especially Razorback. And I also love the Australian rock band In Excess. So,
wow.
Russell Mulcahy, Mad Max, In Excess. That's the reason I went down under.
Yeah, we've heard that you've expressed your appreciation for George Miller before, so that makes a lot of sense. But you've been really you've been making films outside of Japan in recent years. So do you prefer to work abroad because of the access to financing or distribution, or is it the opportunity to work with other people, or is it the material, or some combination thereof? What's your how is this, why and how did your career evolve in this way?
I mean, I quit high school when I was, 17, and I went to Australia to study filmmaking. And, I grew up watching all kinds of movies, American movies, Australian movies, French movies, doesn't really matter, Japanese movies, Hong Kong movies. So, because I've been traveling all over the world since I was 17, I feel like I'm kind of, borderless anyway. And when I started making my first movie, Versus, nobody was making that kind of movie in Japan. So I just try to not to, categorize myself or define myself that, I am this type of director, or I'm only making the movie for the Japanese audience or the American audience. I always try to, expand my my zone, my boundary. So to me, it doesn't really matter. So I'm right now working on my first Japanese movie in 8 years. So that's how long I've been making movie only in the US. So And I just started shooting 3 weeks ago in Japan. 80 years is a long time, but to me, it's just feels very natural. And 2 months ago, I was shooting in New Mexico. I was shooting this movie with, Emil Harsh and Stephen Dorff called The Price We Pay. And so I was shooting that movie in New Mexico, went back to LA for 3 days. Then I flew to, Tokyo, and I'm shooting all over the place in Japan right now for 2 months. So to me, yeah, I mean, I don't really care where I'm shooting or, what I'm doing. I just try to do something I love at the moment, when the opportunity shows up. So
do you consider yourself at this point, it sounds like the answer would be no, but a quote unquote Japanese director, Japanese filmmaker, or it sounds more like you've evolved into an international filmmaker?
I think so. Yes, I mean, I don't deny that I'm from Japan and I love my own country, but I've been living in LA for 15 years now. So and when I was living in Japan, when I was making movie in Japan, I always felt that I was kind of like outsider in Japanese film industry, because everything I was doing, was very different from the typical Japanese movie style. So to me, make movie in United States feels very organic, but that doesn't mean that it's just different time. I was making a lot of movie 20 years ago, 15 years ago in Japan. Right now it's very different, and the Japanese film industry's changed and the crew changed, and this is my first movie in 8 years in Japan, but I feel very comfortable doing it. So I wasn't really happy when I was making tons of movie in Japan, because I was always trying to break all kinds of rules and this tradition, and and if you try to do that, if you try to be the pioneer, of course, I mean, you're attacked by everybody who trying to stay same, So I was very tired. That was the reason I went to United States, but every country, every system has good and bad side. So I'm overall I'm very happy with making movie in Hollywood, but of course you're controlled by a lot of things when you do the movie in Hollywood than the Japan. But I'm not that director with too much ego, so I don't really mind to do my job under some kind of control. So to me it's not really not much difference. So yes, I am the Japanese filmmaker, but yes, I consider myself more like, I don't know, outsider, gypsy filmmaker. I don't care.
Would you say that there's a difference working in Hollywood sets compared to Japanese sets? The environment, the budgets, the work ethic, is stuff like that really different to you from your experience?
Not really. It wasn't that hard for me to adjust into Hollywood system when I did the Midnight Meat Train. That was my first American movie, but it wasn't that hard. To me, harder part was like figuring out this social security number, all that credit history, which I didn't have because I was new in the States. So like, what do you mean I need the credit history? I don't have it. So trying to figure that out was much harder than adjusting to the Hollywood system, because in the end, I believe filmmaking it's all about face to face with my crew and my cast and my producers. So I always try to be straightforward and make crystal clear what my vision is, and as long as I have my good team, it doesn't make difference to me. Every system, independent, big studio, I mean, everything has a different side. And yes, if you're doing the Midnight Meat Train, that was pretty decent budget for my first American movie, but of course I was under a lot of control from the studio and the producers, and I had to figure it out. But important part is am I am I proud of what I did? And I am very proud of the Midnight Meat Train. So yeah, in the end, it all worked out.
Well, we want to ask about a number of different projects, but we would, of course, be remiss if we didn't talk about Godzilla Final Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really jumps out from the very beginning of that film is the credit sequence, which really sets the tone for Godzilla Final Wars. It's fast, it's flashy, it's over the top. And it was designed by Kyle Cooper, who has created titles for many big budget Hollywood films, things including the MCU, the Mission Impossible franchise, Rogue One, even the 2014 legendary Godzilla. So I was curious if you could tell us about that, and were you trying to make any kind of a statement with that title sequence, setting that film apart from the previous Millennium series Godzilla films, which were a lot more conservative?
Mm-hmm. I mean, when Toho Studio and producer Mr. Tomiyama asked me to get on board, I just felt this vision from Mr. Tomiyama that he wants to break the franchise and create something new for the final Godzilla movie for the time. So otherwise, why they hired me to do that, right? So I tried to do something nobody ever done in Godzilla franchises, and as I said, I'm very straightforward. So on the very first meeting, I told Mr. Tomiyama that this is what I like about what I love about the Godzilla, and this is what I don't love about the recent Godzilla movies. And I don't know why, but he chose me. So and I try to do, because I got it as because if he didn't want to make changes, he wouldn't have hired me, right? So I thought that that was Mr. Tomiyama wanted to do. So I just tried to do something very different. And the first thing I told my team was like you said, I want this Godzilla to be like like super fast, like more like brutal, like an animal.
Mm.
I don't want this slow movement, and I don't want this too bright light to make it super obvious that it's a miniature set and the man in suit. I just I don't understand. So and they agreed with my vision. So that's how we started to do something very different, very new Godzilla movie for the final one. And I thought that was my mission. So as an idea, I came up with that opening, credit sequence, because I knew that, I knew that, they're going to start making Godzilla movie again anyway. But at that time, back in 2004, they said that it's going to be the last, Godzilla movie. So, and it was the 50th anniversary movie. So I just wanted to do something with this, 50 years history of, Godzilla remix. And obviously, the best person who can do that in the world was, Clive, Kyle Cooper. So, and I was working on this video game called Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, and I was a good friend with Hideo Kojima, and Kyle Cooper designed all those Metal Gear Solid, title sequence. So I asked him to, introduce me to Kyle, and that's how we started.
Okay.
And Kyle agreed to do it, and so I asked him just one thing. I said, I just want you to do this, best of the best, greatest hits of 50 years of Godzilla fight for opening sequence in 2 minutes, and he did an amazing job.
Getting to kind of how you were first approached for this film. And some of your original ideas. I know that you have said previously that you pitched Toho an idea for a Godzilla movie that would be similar to Con Air. Is there any more of that idea that you recall? Any specifics about what that would have been like?
I have no idea about, I pitched the Con Air Godzilla idea to Toho. I never.
It was a long time ago, so I don't blame you.
I don't know who said that. I mean, I don't recall that. So, No, I didn't have to pitch anything because as I said, producer Tomiyama-san, reached out for me, and we had the very first meeting, and I was just be honest, and he chose me, and he wanted me to get on board. And at the very beginning, he already had this concept of like kaiju, superstar battle royale kind of movie concept. So that's how we started to develop the script with the screenwriters.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 screenwriter and me and Tomiyama-san, 4 of us basically brainstormed for like, I don't know, man, almost like a year, because the first meeting I had with Mr. Tomiyama was right after the release of Azumi, which was the May 2003. And so we spent almost like somewhere between 6 months to 1 year to develop the story. But the overall concept that was already there when I got on board.
Okay.
I think maybe I was just going to say, I think maybe the legendary movies might have stole one of your ideas. The second Godzilla King of the Monsters has Godzilla traveling around the world really fast to fight all these monsters, and we saw that before in your film. Anyway.
That's right. Just getting into your approach to handling a Godzilla movie, especially this 50th anniversary movie. Obviously, you've talked about wanting to kind of honor that 50-year history. But just in terms of the tone and the approach that you took to it, I know that you've talked a little bit about this one being, kind of more of a wild kind of fast-paced movie that would be aimed at kids. It feels a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. Can you tell us, what kind of tone you were going for? I've heard some people call it even a parody of. I don't know if I would go that far, but just what kind of tone and approach did you have to tackling this thing?
I just wanted to make some, the fun movie, for wider audiences, because at that time, Godzilla franchise was ending, to be very honest. It was, because it was coupling with this, tiny hamster animation movie. And
right.
That movie was the reason everybody went to the theater,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I just, didn't like that. Come on, Godzilla, it should be the king of monster, and it can't be the B side of this tiny hamster cute animation, right? So, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but as I said, I'm always, try to be honest. And so on the first meeting, I said that, to Mr. Tomiyama, I said, I don't go to see Godzilla movie anymore because I don't want to see that, as just a B side of this tiny hamster, animation. It's obviously it's making for either kaiju hardcore fans or kids.
Yeah.
And that's why, to me, I felt like, the movie didn't really have this, drama or emotion, the character, Yes, I mean, kaiju fans, we are all happy. As a fan, it's happy. As long as the Godzilla shows up and destroying these miniature cities, we're happy. But as a serious movie fan, I couldn't enjoy those, Millennium series Godzilla anymore. I could enjoy some moments, but not the entire movie. And I just felt like we just have to make a movie for just general audience, not the kaiju fans or the kids.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's why my movie had more human part than other part, and I understand some deep kaiju fans didn't like it because they just want to see the Godzilla, the monsters, But I thought it was important, and I already said, but I felt the picture, the images are so flat because that's very traditional Japanese way of lighting, and just you just light everything too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so obvious. Yes, we know, but it was so obvious to me that it's just a miniature and a man in suit. And I thought, like, I want to make just regular entertainment fun movie. But I love the 70s Godzilla, especially those everybody has their favorite times of Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite was 70s. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Hedra, all those,
Yeah.
So and that was the choice that not only me but the producers and we all agreed. Yes, we could have gone to the more like closer to the original one with this hardcore message, the serious message
Mm-hmm.
about anti-nuclear, but that wasn't the choice because it was the 50th anniversary and Godzilla had all different kind of style in this 50 years. And so in the end, we all agreed to let's do this just a fun, Godzilla movie. Yeah.
Yours also has a lot more comedy and humorous bits in it. Was that something that you intended to do? Was that part of your sensibility, or was that just part of the larger, just trying to appeal to more people? If you make it funnier and that would kind of draw more people in and have them, I guess, relate to the movie more.
No, that's like, I don't know, obviously my sensitivity, because that's what I've been doing since versus I just
has
like
a lot of the same kind of stuff. Yeah,
I just like those funny moments in the movies.
Well, yeah, and it's not like a slapstick comedy or anything like that. It's more of like just a more modern sensibility, I think. And I think some of these questions that we're asking might seem a little, I hope they don't seem repetitive, but we're trying to get into is maybe, and you're discussing it, which is great, your thought process, because the film is so different than what came before. You talked about all the different iterations of Godzilla, but you didn't, in a way, you paid tribute at the beginning of the film to Honda and Tsuburaya and Tanaka. So it's very reverential in that regard. And you do have the opening credits sequence, which is a history of Godzilla. And the plot itself, this alien invasion, is very traditional. It goes back to the films all the way from the 60s, where you have the aliens from Planet X now in a different, form, but it's basically a tribute to that story. And yet there's so much of it, the acting, the pacing, the action, the cinematography, the lighting, as you said, the sets, they all seem different, kind of it's very much a director's film in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate Mr. Tomiyama's choice, because it's very simple. If he didn't want something new, something different, he wouldn't have chose me. So I just took it very serious. Okay, so if you choose me to be the final director for the 50 years of Godzilla franchise, okay, I mean, that's my mission, to do something very different, And he was always there to support me. So I have huge respect for him.
Yeah.
I've heard, and I don't know how much of this is true or how much you might even remember, but I've heard that there were some other ideas for the movie, including like Mechagodzilla being on the table at one point. Is that something that you remember well, or that you could elaborate on it? Any plot lines that may have been dropped throughout, the writing process?
Not really, because the overall idea was already there, and I just expanded those ideas and turned into the script with the screenwriters. And to be very honest, I don't know why I didn't put Mechagodzilla. I know I should have, and I don't know why I didn't do it. But it was tough, because in the 50 years of history, there are a lot of kaiju in Godzilla franchise, right? So me and the writers and Mr. Tomiyama, we had this, the Sophie figure all over the table, and we were, we took so many time to decide which, kaiju will be in this movie, and which we have to take it out. So yeah, that part, it wasn't really my decision. We all, four of us, we talked, and finally agreed with those lineups. So I don't know why, but surprisingly, nobody, as I recall, nobody really brought up, we should put Mechagodzilla into it. I don't know why.
I'm sure the one question you get asked over and over again is how you decided to put the TriStar Godzilla in the film, and why you wanted to do that. It's probably the most talked about scene in the movie.
Because I knew people will be asking me after 17 years. That's why I did it. Because Mr. Tomiyama said that Toho has the right to use that. So like, if we have the rights to use it, then why don't we just use it? That would be a fun moment. So yes.
Also, there's a lot of the kind of old school Toho actors in here. Akira Takarada, Kumi Mizuno, Kenji Sahara. Why was that important to kind of get those folks in?
Of course. So I always get always misunderstood that I don't really respect, because Final Wars was very different from other Godzilla franchises, but that's not really true. I do respect a lot. Of course, 50 years of history, that's a huge cross to carry. And I knew that yes, it's an honor to be doing the Godzilla movie, but that also you have to carry the cross for entire career and the entire life. That's why I'm doing this interview with you guys, right? So I thought about it, and I didn't really like all those Millennium Godzilla movies, but yes, I do love Godzilla from the 60s and 70s. So I knew this is the cross that I have to carry for the rest of my career and my life, but still, I decided I wanted to do this, and that's because I have pure love and respect. And of course, that's why I started, the movie with the classic Toho logo and paid a tribute at the beginning, and even with the opening credit. And once the movie starts, I knew that what I'm gonna do is very different from all the kaiju movies or Toho movies. So I still wanted to bring in the touch of this, tradition of Godzilla movies. That's why I cast all those amazing veteran actors.
I actually feel like you gave them more to do than a lot of the Heisei and Millennium movies that they did previously, where they would just be like standing in one room the whole time. I mean, you have Akira Takarada playing an alien and having his head pop open, and you have Kumi Mizuno and gunfights. I mean, you kind of put them to work a little bit more, I think.
Yeah,
I thought that that's really mean respect. They weren't young anymore, but why you hire those great actors and you just let them just standing or sitting and give you not really important lines here and there. I really wanted to work with them as an actor and director. So Ms. Mizuno was very happy that when we were doing the gunfight, and she said that she never done any squib in her glorious long career. She said, "This is my first time I get shot." So like, wow, that's good. That's great. And
there's
Mr.
also there's also a lot of like deep cut like reference, like you have Gorath in there. That's a movie that no one, I don't feel like, was really talking about or ever really got referenced in other Godzilla movies. So there are like little bits of that stuff that I guess shows some of that reverence that you're speaking of.
Yes, and even the Gotengo, so
Yep.
I felt like, so when the movie came out, not in overseas, but in Japan, it was like 50, half and a half, half, not even half, like 30% loved the movie, 70% kaiju fans hated the movie. So I was under attack from all those kaiju fans, but Give me a break. I pay more respect than all those movies. Come on, I brought back. I you know reintroduced Gotengo and Golas and everything. So yeah, I mean Gotengo is my favorite machine in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Which was redesigned by Yoji Shinkawa, who is the designer of Metal Gear Solid, and he did an amazing job.
The film was kind of publicized at the time as being the most expensive Godzilla movie ever, I believe, ever made up to that point. But Toho kind of has a reputation of being a somewhat conservative company. Was there any kind of pushback or any kind of negotiating around the budget and how much how much leeway you had to make this production as big as it is, and did you feel any limitations on some of the things that you wanted to do?
I mean, the budget-wise, thanks to Mr. Tomiyama, he always see this as this grand finale of the Godzilla franchise, and he wanted to do big, and he must have huge fight with the financier of the studio to gave me that big budget, but I didn't have that much problem with the budget. But even we had biggest budget of the Godzilla movie in Japan, still it wasn't enough from what we were trying to do. And that's when I felt like kind of like a difficulty working with this Toho studio. Like you said, as you know, Toho studio was very traditional conservative studio, and everybody in Japanese film industry was surprised that I was even able to bring in my own DP who I've been working with since my Versus. Because Toho Studio had, they had their own DPs and everybody, right, basically. And nobody thought that it's possible to bring in my own DP. And with Mr. Tomiyama's support, I was able to do it because I explained to him. I didn't have to fight. I just explained to him that, me and my DP, Takumi Furuya, we built our glorious career together. So he's my weapon, and why you want to take out my weapon? If I have no other choice, I don't mind, working with anybody, but I don't think it's a good idea. And Mr. Tomiyama agreed, and he supported me. So even bringing my DP was hard. So, and again, thanks to, amazing producer, Mr. Tomiyama, he agreed to bringing, designer from the video game world, right? So Yoji Shinkawa redesigned, Gotengo, and he also, did the costume for those, the soldiers. Then I brought in, this Nirasawa-san to redo the Gaigan, and Mr. Katsuya Terada to do the Monster X and King Caesar. So he supported me. And because I wanted to make changes and I want to do something different. So, and I had a lot of friends in video game world and the illustration. So I was able to bring in all those, geniuses to, recreate the world of my world of Godzilla. So, Mr. Tomiyama always backed me up, but still the money wasn't enough to do what I wanted to do. So, but again, even you have $100 million, there's always, you want to do more. So that wasn't that hard. Yeah.
It's a very ambitious project. So you kind of are answering this question already, but having started as an independent filmmaker, and you use the term outsider, what was it like to suddenly be thrust into this Toho system, which I know the studio system had changed, but Toho has a legacy going back to the early days of Japanese cinema, and this is a big project, a bigger project I think than you'd ever. I mean, when you look at the cast list for this film, it's unbelievably long, and so how were you treated compared? Do you get a sense of how you were treated as a newcomer compared to other directors who had worked in this system before? And I understand that even though you were able to bring in a number of your own people in key positions, the crew basically is consistent from one production to another in large part, is my understanding. And I'm just curious to know how that environment was for you and how you were treated in that environment.
No, I mean, Toho and Mr. Tomiyama treated me very well, very, very generous. So I had lots of creative freedom, but certain point there is a lot of things that I had to keep tradition, like I mean, I am very proud of Final Wars, but if I can rewind the time, one thing I really wanted to do was, I wanted to do directing, to direct all those kaiju part. But in the tradition, you have the two different part, and when it comes to this, kaiju sequences, normally the director don't do that part, right? So that's, if I can go back, that's what I really wanted to do. So, but still, I try to bring in my own vision. So I made like insane amount of storyboard. With the team, I did the Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. They're the best, and they know exactly what I want. So I worked with them and I created this like insane, amount of storyboard, which was, yes, it's exactly the same what you see in the movie, but much more, And of course, with all those, the budgetary reason, the realistic, issues, and once I handed to, the other director, who's in charge of the kaiju part, I can't, interfere that much, right? Because I have to respect him. And Mr. Asada, who did the kaiju part, I think he did an amazing job, but, he didn't do, exactly as my storyboard, because, I mean, he shouldn't, he was in charge of that unit. So I don't blame him, and I'm very, grateful of what he did, but it wasn't really what I was, trying to do. And that was, I say, that was the realistic, kind of like a barrier between, me and the Toho studio system that time.
Tradition,
Yeah.
With the monster selection, you've mentioned Hedorah and King Caesar over the years, including today, as two of your favorite monsters. But oddly, they might have like the least screen time of that ensemble. Why was that? Was that just related to shooting schedules or things like that?
Which ensemble are you talking about?
Just out of all the monsters, Hedorah and King Caesar, who are two of your favorites, oddly enough, they have less screen time than a lot of the other monsters. Was that due to shooting schedules or different units or?
I mean that is the yes, kind of one part budget, part schedule, and part because it was a different unit. I haven't seen it for years, but I believe that in the storyboard I created, there was much longer Hedorah fight.
So the previous films that you followed in the Millennium series, they're more Japan-centric, for lack of a better way of putting it, whereas your film is global. It not just it has an international feel. It starts at the South Pole and it goes around the world. So does this stem from your point of view and your evolution as an international person and an international filmmaker, or was this concept part of Toho's idea to make the movie more internationally marketable, or was it something else?
I mean, I believe it was there from when I got on board. Something. I mean, those exilian idea was already there, and trying to do. I don't remember that. it was all over the world fight from the beginning or not, but exilian invasion idea was there, and trying to do much bigger scale was already there. I probably expanded way too much and make it into entire planet Earth, but it was there. Yeah.
So a question, a kind of a theme question for you. These images of destruction are really essential. They're an essential part of the Godzilla movies. And these scenes in Final Wars are especially grim, I think, and very dark. You talked about the lighting and the way these scenes are lit. But much has been written about how these types of images and similar tropes in anime and other genres are tied to Japan's history of the atomic bombings and the war and natural disasters. So as a filmmaker, when you're making a movie like this, do these legacies occur to you when you're shooting those scenes?
Of course, it occurred, and I put one scene, but I didn't want that legacy or the theme at the, I didn't want to put that at the core of the movie. Then it's going to become very serious and dark, and which was against what we're trying to do, which was like basically the 50th anniversary grand finale, kind of like 4th of July fireworks of the Godzilla franchise. And if I dig too deep into the theme, then it's going to turn into a very different movie. And not only me, we didn't want to do that. So, but I still, of course, wanted to touch. So there is one scene that, Minilla and those hunter old man and the kid watching, and, he makes some speech. So I still try to, pay respect to the theme.
This is a similar question, but your film also breaks from the previous few films, which had the SDF as central heroes in the story, and you kind of went in a completely different kind of direction. Did you have any feeling about the way the SDF was becoming more and more the center of those films?
Yeah, I just I told Mr. Tomiyama that particularly the part.
Really?
I said I don't really want to go the military-esque. So that's why I decided. First thing I decided was this is like Earth's Defense Force,
right?
Not the Japanese troopers. And I don't know. I mean, that is something that I thought it's not really cool to do that.
Yeah, no,
visually.
It's a major change, and I was just curious if if it was conscious. Obviously, another thing, your movie borrows or pays homage to Hollywood genre movies. Particularly, I'm thinking of the X-Men films, which is kind of surprising in hindsight, only because looking at your other movies, I don't see. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see evidence that you're like a huge fan of comic book movies and things like that. I do wonder what you think about Die Hard. I really enjoyed Doorman, and I thought that was a really clever update of that kind of formula. But how did the parallels to American film tropes come into play?
I always think of Matrix too.
Matrix too, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I simply love Matrix. that's why I try to pay homage to that, but never really thought about X-Men.
Oh,
to
really?
be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, that idea came from one of the screenwriter, and again, after looking back after 17 years, I don't think after 17 years, I don't think it was that great idea, to be honest. Those, the half breed of exilians, that makes a little bit, the story complicated.
Yeah.
But that was the idea came from, the screenwriter. And at that point, yes, we thought that was the best possible, I mean, the first idea, I don't know, I don't even remember how many times we wrote the treatment or the screenplay, but very early draft, I remember that Exilian came with this, the bunch of UFO, and they were just, put the laser beam and doing like a cattle mutilation style, just sucking up all those humans all over the world. And and I don't know why and at what point, I don't remember, but we just thought that that's maybe not really this type of movie. So we decided not to do that. And I don't know, somewhere at that point, that idea of half-breed and those mutant soldiers, but I don't know. After 17 years, again, if I can go back time, I wouldn't do that.
What can you tell us about the little kid with chocolate all over his face? It seems like a comment on Middle America.
Yes, and with the respect, I thought it's fun to let him throw that that tiny turtle into the fireplace.
Right.
It's just no any disrespect, but I just thought it's fun.
One thing I always wondered during the scene in New York with the cop and pimp, you can see their mouthing what looks like a lot of curse words, but it's dubbed over, almost like when you watch an R-rated movie on TV. What exactly happened there? Were there a lot of swear words in the screenplay, or did they tell you after the fact, like, hey, go and redub this because this is harsh language or anything like that?
I don't remember that. I mean, you're talking about the English version?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't really remember, but obviously I knew that I was making this movie for the wider audience, so I don't think I told them to say any F word or any nasty language. So I don't know why, but I don't even remember. But of course, the most of the Japanese theater, they play the Japanese dubbed version. So when you watch that one, yes, it feels weird, but yeah, I honestly don't remember. But that scene was fun to shoot, and I love that shoot. And we actually shot that scene in Sydney, not in New York.
I want to. You kind of talked about how a lot of the Godzilla films at the time were being filmed with very flat lighting, and Final Wars has a completely different kind of extreme color grading. What was that inspired? Like, was that inspired by some of the things you did in Versus? I know the new Versus Blu-ray that came out has a different color grading as well. Would you go back and change any of the color grading on either Final Wars or some of your older films? There's been a little bit of controversy over the recent Versus disc because it looks different from how the movie looked originally when it came out on video.
I know. I was surprised. I felt like I became like George Lucas or somebody. Like, really? Come on. In the world of Versus, there's no rules. I can do whatever I want. So but that then I understand. Some fans were very upset about that. But yeah. So if I have chance to do the remaster, Final Wars or Azumi, I probably do the same. Because even 17 years ago, there was no color grading in Japan. Only thing you could do was, we were still shooting the movie with film, and only thing you can do was, not like frame by frame, shot by shot color grading. You just have to put the only thing you can do is put the filter in the overall scene, to make overall entire the scene a little bit yellow or the blue or So
it's a lot different now. You can do a lot more.
So I'm extremely happy with the Versus remaster, because now I finally wanted to do what I wanted to do 20 years ago. It wasn't really my intention. That was the only way to do it 20 years ago. So if I have chance to change it, I mean, I thought why I'm not doing it? So
Mm.
So no, I was happy with the color and everything looks of Azumi or the Godzilla Final Wars back then, but now we can do much more. So if I have a chance, I would love to. I'm not going to change, that. And I honestly don't understand why some fans are very upset about I changed the colors of versus. Like,
Yeah.
come on, it looks much better to me. I mean, come on. And I didn't change blue to yellow, right? I just make it more natural and with more depths. So I don't, that's what I want to do if I have chance. I don't know if Toho let me do that, but yeah.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you in an interview saying that at one point you really wanted to get Jean Reno into Final Wars, and I know that you just did the Doorman with him recently. Did you get a chance to ever tell him, like, you were in the '98 Godzilla, and I really wanted to put you in my Godzilla? Did you ever get a chance to have that conversation?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, what's the point in saying that? I mean, we can't change the past. So no, I mean, it was great to work with John, and he's amazing. He's an amazing actor, amazing human being. I love him. But yeah, we were talking about something else. Our private life, and his experience when he was making Professional, the Leon, and that question didn't come. I mean, that didn't come up. I completely forgot about. But yes, at the time we tried to do, bringing Jean Reno. Then we tried to and did the deal or something. I don't know. I wasn't the one negotiating. Somebody from Toho did it and didn't work out. And then we tried Sunny Chiba. Didn't turn out.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Then Christopher Lambert didn't work out. Then they brought up Don Johnson, and I said, like, no, I mean, no, it's not gonna work.
Wow.
So when casting brought up Don Johnson, I said, no, what about Don Fry? And I love him. I think he did an amazing job. So
you were kind of following the tradition of the films in the 1960s, bringing over these actors. That's a really interesting thing. And did you want Jean Reno to play a part that would have been related to the TriStar Godzilla in your movie, or something completely unrelated?
No. To play the part that the Don Fry did.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, the Captain Gordon was the only character. Yeah. Of course, if John got on board, the character changed dramatically, but
Sure.
That was the character, I wanted him to play.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
Then didn't work out. Sunny Chiba didn't work out, and Christopher Lambert didn't work out, and then I just shifted direction, and I went to meet Don Fry, and I just knew that he would be perfect.
Were you already familiar with his career at that point?
Of course, he was like superstar in Japanese, all those MMA fights and K1 fights. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned like the New York scene was actually shot in Australia, and I know that you did several location shoots with different units. How were those units run? Were they different crews on at each unit and so on?
Yeah, we basically had 3 units. One is my unit, main unit, and then the kaiju unit and the overseas unit. So, but the Manhattan part was longer than all those, because all those, the Shanghai moments or the Paris moments or Arizona moments, that's like just an action, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the New York part had, a little bit more of the character and the dialogue. So we thought that I should be the one doing it. And Sydney is where I lived when I was in film school. So it was like my second hometown. And only in the world of Godzilla, it's a great honor to be crushed by kaiju, right? So that was very fun, few days. And we actually started shooting from the New York scene in Sydney. That was, I think, probably the day one. Yeah. So when I was shutting down the streets of Sydney, and all my classmates from my film school was there, and that was fun.
Oh,
But then the rest of the Shanghai or the Paris, I just sent my overseas unit. Again, I made a completely storyboard, and yeah, I was overseeing the everything, but overseas unit went and they shot it.
Well, kind of looking at some of your more recent films, this is another kind of thematic question. Things like Midnight Meat Train and No One Lives. Graphic violence and gore are a big part of your work in some films. What is your thought around film violence? Are you making a statement with it? Are you fulfilling the audience expectations? Just curious to know your kind of thought process with regard to some of the graphic violence in your movies.
There's not really a statement, but when you offered to do the movie, titled "The Midnight Meat Train," I feel like I have to give audience what more than what they expect.
Right.
If I give less than audience expect, what I'm doing, right? And as a fan, not many horror movies satisfy me, because like, really, that's it, that's the killing. I mean, it's so boring. You're still cutting the throat with knife. Come on, you have to do better than that. We've seen much better version in Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, and you're still doing that shit? No. So I always try to come up with something new.
Yeah, I thought you were going to run out of blood on Midnight Meat Train.
Yeah. I was yelling on the set, or every day, more blood, more blood.
Why do you think we've never truly seen a gory kaiju movie yet? It seems like somebody along the way should have pushed the needle in that direction.
Maybe I should be the one doing it, but
Do it.
I don't know if kaiju movie fans and horror movie fans are the same. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much death and destruction going on, but it's mostly invisible.
Yep.
Do you have? Do you want to share your opinion of the Hollywood Godzilla movies? I assume you've seen them and have thought about them.
No, I always enjoy as a fan, and I really don't like to, judge or make, negative comment about, somebody's work. I don't do that.
Sure.
It's against my policy. As a friend, yes, I do, but yeah, I never do that on the social or the interview, because I know, no matter how bad the movie is, I know that, I understand more than anybody that, movie making, every single day you encounter these hundreds of problems, and you have to, it's a struggle, so I just try to pay respect, and I don't talk about it on the interview or the social. So I simply enjoy the Godzilla movies. I'm still a fan, and,
Did you check out Shin Godzilla? That was a very different. You were talking about your movie being different. That one was really different too, especially Godzilla mutating and all that.
Of course. I went to watch on the day one, of course, and that was the first movie since my movie, right? After 10 years, they made that movie, so of course, and I finally. 2 years ago, I finally met. We were surprised, but we never actually met. But I met with the, Shinji Higuchi-san. Yeah. So
there's a lot of kaiju stuff.
Yeah. So like that was fun night. Where we all had the dinner. The director of Final Wars and Shin Godzilla. Final and Shin means new, so final and news, and we had so much fun. So yeah.
Speaking of Midnight Meat Train, that's one of your movies that I is one of my favorites. But I'm assuming, like you, I'd known the Clive Barker story as well. He was involved in that production. What was your collaboration like with Clive Barker with Midnight Meat Train?
I love Clive to death. I mean, he's amazing human being, amazing. I mean, like super genius, master of horror, right? And when the producer gave me the script, he handed me the script at the meeting, and I look at the title, I just gave it back. I said, no, I don't want to touch it, and I don't want you to do it. And you're talking about this Clive Barker short story, Book of Blood, Midnight Meat Train. I don't believe that, you can actually make a script based on that, and I don't think you can make a movie. Then the producer, he laughed, and he said, like, we were working with Clive and his people, so just take a look at it. And if you don't like it, we're going to find something else to do. So I didn't want it, but I started reading, and I really liked the script. Script still needed some, work, but I really liked it. So 2 days later, I went back to the office and I said, I think this script has potential. And that's how I get on board. But again, every, creating process is very different, but every time it's not that easy. If it's easy, that means I feel like if the movie making is easy, I feel like I'm not doing my job. So yes, to elevate the script was very hard, and we had to try, all different directions. One time Clive was very, unhappy about it. So I went to Clive's house and we discussed, and I talked about, no, I told Clive that, you don't understand. This is my vision. This is what I want to do. And it's not on the pages yet, but this is what we're trying to do. And he always respect what I was, trying to do. And he always had, supported me. So, no, I mean, that was my first American movie, and it wasn't easy, but working with Clive, that was very easy.
This is a question you probably get a lot at this point, but that stars a very young Bradley Cooper, who is now this like big star, Oscar-nominated actor. How did he get cast in that movie?
I was working on the script at the office of this lecturer entertainment, and they put me in this room that everybody called a fish tank, which is like surrounded by the glass, right? And I'm a Japanese, so I was very uncomfortable. In Japan, we keep our privacy. So, but in America, everybody opens their door of their office, right? And that was like, really? That was big surprise to me, this being a big culture difference. And everybody was, even we were working, everybody was always getting a call from, their wife and say like, I love you, honey. Like Japanese, we don't do that. When we are at work, wives, they don't call you. And when you're in the office, you close the door, right? So I was like, what is this? I'm in the middle of the office and, locked in this, fish tank. And I was working on the script, and this, super nice looking guy walked past in front of me, and he went into the producer's office, and, I asked, who is that guy? And he said, this is an actor named Bradley Cooper. And I said, I want to meet him. And then producers like, coming into my office. And I went to him and we started talking. And I just knew that he was, he had something very special. So I gave him, the script. I just printed the script and gave him, and it just take it home. It still needs some work, but, and that's how he got on board. And yeah, I always knew that, Bradley Cooper gonna be Bradley Cooper now, but I wasn't expecting that fast.
Yeah, he kind of skyrocketed. He follows like he kind of does follow, like there's a lot of stars that started off in these like low budget horror movies, and like Patricia Arquette in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, stuff like that. Did you happen to see David Russell's movie Silver Linings Playbook, which
of course
Bradley Cooper got he got an Oscar nomination? But okay, so you obviously caught the little tribute they did to Midnight Meat Train then.
Of course. Yeah, I was at the Toronto International Film Festival with No One Lives, and I was getting lots of interviews, and everybody started asking me, have you seen Silver Lining? And I was like, no, I haven't seen it yet. And, then I went to see on the day one, and, I just found out, this is why everybody was asking me.
That's why everyone's asking. Yeah.
No, I mean Bradley Cooper is amazing actor, and I always knew that. But I mean, he is. I mean, seriously, the wonderful person. So I was shooting in New Mexico, 2 months ago, and that was probably the most chaotic shoot in my entire career. Because this movie, I mean, it's all about the timing. No matter you sign the contract or you do the press release, you never know this movie is really going to happen or not until you're on the set, right? But this movie happened like super fast, like suddenly started in and I had to, it was crazy. I had 1 week to prep and 15 days to shoot, which is insane. And the price we pay is kind of like me going back to No One Lives. It's like it's 100%, my world, right? It's like insane movie. So to create a movie like Midnight Meat Train or No One Lives, you need some time and you need some money, right? But this one, because I already had the movie which I'm shooting right now in Japan, I had only this tiny spot, and Emil Hirsch and Stephen Dahl had this tiny spot. So it was either we all knew this is gonna be like chaos. It's like a war every single day. But are we gonna do it or not? And we all decided to just dive in and do it. So we were doing, but it was insane. It was insanely hot in New Mexico, and I mean that's a very of course, everybody knows, every world, all the world knows how crazy New Mexico movie shooting is, especially now, right? Because of this, tragic happened. But it was chaos to shoot that movie in New Mexico. So, every day it's just, seriously, it's just so messed up, so. Even with this 20 years of my career, and none of my movie making was easy, but there was a lot of problem that I even haven't experienced was happening every single day. So at one point I was starting to lose my faith, in my confidence. I was like, hey, is this me? I'm not good enough director. I mean, then I was. Just I don't have that kind of moment, because I always have faith in what I'm doing, and I'm always confident, and I'm always calm on my set. But when I was shooting this movie, The Price We Pay, it was just so crazy. So just brief moment, I was losing face, right? That's when, I was sitting in the camera. That's when, my phone, beeped. So I look at it. And it was a text from, somebody, hey, Ryuhei, is this your phone? So I said, who the fuck is this, right? And he said, it's Bradley. So that was like, oh. Because, I don't like to use people. So, when Bradley Cooper exploded, a lot of producer, asked me, I mean, you are the one, casting for the, for his first lead role. And, you have the good relation. Why don't you just, give the script? And I always said, no, that's your job. That's a casting job. No, I don't beg him to read the script. No, so I, kind of, intentionally kept the distance away from him because I know that he was a superstar, right? But then out of nowhere, he sent me super nice text and I said, hey, Cooper, I text you, a few times, then he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I changed my phone and, I didn't tell you, Then he said, I'm in editing room with Guillermo del Toro and we're always talking about you. So, let's hang out when you come back. So super. And how much energy that gives me. Oh, Bradley Cooper and Guillermo del Toro in the editing room. And talking about me and send me this text when I was very down in this chaos of New Mexico,
Talking
so
about
Bradley
you with
Cooper,
Guillermo del Toro, no less.
Yeah, man. No, Guillermo was very nice. I met him at the after party of my friend's movie, Vincenzo Natali's movie's place. And that's when I, first time when I ran into him, and he's a huge fan of Versus and Midnight Meat Train, and he's been very always been very supportive.
With your Versus cast, I know they just reunited for a little movie called Ryuku Muso Subliminal War. Is that something that you were involved with in any way, or are you aware of that, or have they told you about that? It looks very Versus style.
It is a parody of Versus in like much much smaller scale, and to be honest, it's really pissed me off.
Oh yeah.
I don't we went our separate ways, and there will be no Versus 2 with those cast, because especially after they did that, I mean,
do you think they did that?
I will be making Versus, but not with them.
Okay. Well, I want to follow up on that real quick. Is do you know why they did that?
Because they I don't know. I have no idea, because that's very...
Sounds like you haven't spoken to them in a while.
Very disrespectful. I don't say who, but one of those cast is... I thought he was like my brother, but I don't know. I don't know why. Without no reason, he started talking all the bad mouths about me behind my back, and I don't know. I honestly don't know why, right? And everybody should know that this guy was doing that, but yet if he calls out, everybody gathered and did that, that's very disrespectful for me. So that means they just burned their own bridge, on their own choices. So yeah, it's sad, but 20 years, it's been 20 years, right? So people changes, time changes, and to be very honest, I am the one, like you just said, I've made movies, great actors like Bradley Cooper, Luke Evans, Ruby Rose, Jean Reno, Stephen Dove, Emil Hirsch, and I'm making with this superstar in Japan right now. So, and it's very sad, but none of those actors at that level. So, and probably they know it, and that's why they did it on their own, because they know that they can't come to me and do this, tiny budget Versus, sequel. I can't do that. If I'm going to do the new Versus, it's going to be big.
So I do want to talk about. Okay, yeah, I do kind of want to talk about what you feel like is next for Versus. Over the years, there's been talk of either a Versus 2, at one point an American remake, or a remake that would also kind of be a sequel. Like, obviously, that's something you still wish to do. I guess, what is your, where are you with the next Versus project? Is there any real movement right now? What's your vision?
It's slowly moving. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of different things on Versus. It's slowly moving. Yeah, but like I said, it's going to be very same spirit, but it's much bigger, much even crazier. And if I do it, I have to do it right. Otherwise, why I have to do that? If I do Versus, I don't want to do another, tiny budget, crazy movie. It has to be something much bigger and same but different, like almost like Mad Max 2 turning into Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay.
So if I do new Versus, which I'm working on it right now, I'm just too busy to focus. But and it's big. I already have the script. It's just big and insane. So. And I'm not gonna do the watered down version of that. So that means I need to have a lot of budget for that. I mean, much bigger budget of the original. So I'm working on it, but when I do it, it's gonna be Versus Fury Road. That's what it is.
Okay.
It opens up with like 30 minutes of crazy correction. I try to do even longer car battle than Mad Max Fury Road. So of course, obviously, it needs a lot of money to do that. But I'm working on it, so I'm gonna do it one day. But I just have tons of other projects, so I don't know when I'm gonna do it.
I know you didn't want to name names, but any former versus castmates that I guess maybe were not involved in that new project, or any of them that you're on good terms with. Are you looking to call some people back for the new one?
No, it's gonna be new story. Yeah,
Just
new
start
setting,
fresh.
new story. So start fresh. Yeah.
I do want to ask you. There's a couple projects that you were involved in. One was the Sky High TV series, which you did a part of, and then Shusuke Kaneko. Shusuke Kaneko did another part of that. He also made the sequel to your movie Azumi. Did the two of you ever discuss, I guess, how you were kind of working in the same properties at the same, similar time?
No, not really. I think I only met him twice. One was at the film festival when I wrote Versus in Japan. He was the one of the jury, and that was the first time I met. And the second time was the premiere of Azumi 2. And yeah, when I was too busy to do, because again, that was I don't know why, but the producer made choice to do the Azumi 2 in the middle of I was working on Godzilla Final Wars. So why are you doing that? Come on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they did it and they invited me, and I honestly didn't want to go. But I couldn't say no, so I went there anyway.
Yeah.
So those are the only two times. But once yeah, we don't discuss. We are two different different style, different type of director, and once you on board, you take care of your yourself.
Yeah.
So no, we never discussed.
Okay, we've met him a couple times. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is, of course.
As I wanted to ask you, as a bilingual filmmaker, do you ever get a chance to, I guess, review any of the dubs or translations for any of your Japanese films when they're getting ready to be exported?
Not really. I don't. I'm normally not really happy with this English dubbed version of my movies. Yeah. But I was just watching this movie morning, the Japanese version of Doorman, which was all right. Yeah.
There's another filmmaker, a director, Yuda Yamaguchi, that at a certain point seemed like you were kind of shepherding him through, the beginning of his career. There's a low budget movie, Battlefield Baseball, which I enjoy. What was it like? I guess working with him and trying to support him in his early years.
Yeah, we wrote verses together, and he was always on my side when we were making, the verses, and that was like crazy, indie guerrilla filmmaking, and he was always there for me. So I felt like, I need to support him to, break through and become the director, not just, my assistant, right?
Yeah.
So that's why when I found the manga of Battlefield Baseball, I gave it to you, Diane, and said, this is the fun manga, and what do you think? And he said, he loves it. So I talked to a couple of people and somehow packaged it together, and yeah, that was his first movie. And he's been doing pretty good. So I'm happy for him.
You've worked in some other mediums as well. I know there was the animated project Baton. How did you get involved in an animated project, and how does your I guess approach to that material differ from when you do live action, or is there any difference?
Not really, because I already did Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes, and that was like 4 hours of motion capture. So which is basically, working with the actors and working the stunts, and it's basically the same. You create a storyboard, and So I was already, kind of knew what to do. And that project came to me from my friend, and he's one of my favorite Japanese directors, Shunji Iwai. And he's like a pure genius. And then he was living in LA that time, and he said, "And hey, are you interested in directing my script and do the rotoscope and turn into animation?" And that sounded very fun to me. So I said yes, and we did it together. And and it's funny. I love every Shunji Iwai movie, especially this movie called Swallowtail Butterfly. That's one of my favorite Japanese movie. Amazing movie. And he was the former director. He was supposed to direct Azumi before me.
Oh, okay. And would it have been an animated project or?
No. Shunji Iwai is a live action director.
So live action. Okay, cool.
And he's like a huge director. He's not well known in the United States, but he's huge in Japan and in China, in Korea. So and when the producer Mata Yamamoto, he saw Versus at the film festival, and he took me out drinking, and he said, like, there's a project I want you to do, and it's called Azumi. And Azumi is based on the huge manga, so I of course knew what it was, and I also knew that Mr. Shunji Iwai was about to do it. So I said, like, don't you think it's better to go with him than me, because I'm nobody, and he's huge. He's the biggest director in Japan right now. So but Mata and Shunji had different vision of the movie, so it didn't work out after working for years. So finally Shunji left and I took over, and then we started meeting. Then he moved to LA, and we became very good friends, and I have huge respect for him. So when he asked me to do this, and of course the only thing I can say was yes. And so it was based on his script, and we shot all like a widescreen in the studio of Japan. Then we brought all the material back to LA, and we worked with this animation house, Titmouse, and we rotoscope and turned into the animation, which was very fun project.
Cool. And then I know you are also listed as working on a manga, Marion Hyde. Is that, I guess, is there a reason why that was in a comic form instead of a movie form, or and just what is your approach to material like that any different than if you're making a movie?
No, that was when I was prepping Midnight Meat Train. I came up with this amazing idea. So and I knew that even when I write the script, Hollywood executives, it's going to take forever to let them read the script. But if it's based on manga, it's an easier approach.
Right.
So I made a phone call to my friend in Japan, asked me to find a publisher, small publisher, because big publisher, it's gonna get complicated. So I said, I need a small publisher, and all the rights belong to me, so I don't have to deal with all this bullshit, and just find me the small publisher, do the manga for now. And and this publisher got on board, so they did that. We did the 2 volume of the manga. Okay. And that's the good side of Japan. So I made a phone call while I was prepping in the Midnight Meat Train, and once I finished shooting Midnight Meat Train, I took 2 weeks off, and I went back to Japan, and already the first episode came out. So I went to the bookstore and I bought my own comic, and I went back to LA, and I went to pitch this to the producer, and I sold it, and that was supposed to be the big movie, but again, that's the bad side of Japan, the America. Everything takes so long.
Yeah.
So after a year, it didn't work out, so I got the rights back to me, and I sold it a couple times, but because it's a very strong concept, but didn't work out. So I decided to go different routes. So right now we are developing animation series.
Okay.
in Japan, and I'm also working on the live action version too. So
Okay.
we'll see.
All right. Yeah, you're always staying busy. I know IMDb is not always the best source of
Not really.
information, but you have a writing credit on a tokusatsu film called Bravestorm. Is that something you were involved in that you can speak about?
Not really. I mean, yeah, this the director producer, he asked me to get on board. He had some, he went through a couple of writers and didn't work out, and he wanted somebody to just get on board, and then it was this fresh eye, and so I just jumped on board, and I had this like 1 week spot that I could work on it, and he was my friend, so I said, oh, fine. And then I wrote the script and I gave it to him. Then he did his own rewrite, and which is very different from the movie, from what I wrote. So, but it is what it is. So, yeah, I just helped him a little bit.
Okay. That was based on a couple of tokusatsu shows from back in the day. Super Robot Red Baron and Silver Mask, Silver Common. Were you familiar with those?
Not as familiar
series when they asked you to do that.
Not as familiar as Godzilla franchise,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I asked him, when he asked me to do it, I asked him, so what do you want to do? You just want to do this for tokusatsu fans, or you want to make just a regular fun movie? What do you want to do? And he said, no, I'm not doing this for tokusatsu fans. So okay, so I wrote I really loved what I did in 1 week, but in the end, it was purely for tokusatsu fans. But again, it is, and that one I was just asked to step in for 1 week, and that's all I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as far as the Godzilla franchise goes, you are, and I suspect you will probably remain, the only Japanese film director of a Godzilla film to have a red carpet premiere at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, and that was such a major event at the time. Very exciting. What did the whole experience of directing Final Wars do for your career? Did it send you off in this international direction in any way, being a sort of international production of sorts?
I don't think so, but it was just pure fun. I mean, it was an honor. If you were a Japanese director and asked to do the Godzilla movie, that's an honor, especially when it was 50th anniversary and the final, Godzilla. So, when it wasn't really my choice, I asked Mr. Tomiyama, are you sure to get this crazy director on board of this, biggest movie of, Godzilla? And, he said yes. So, that was, I felt very honored, and I just dedicated, 2 years of my life. And yes, it was a struggle, but I'm very proud. I'm still very proud of what we did on that movie. And when it came out, I was so angry, and that was a part of the reason, to be honest, that I left Japan, because I felt like no matter how hard we tried, in the end, it's all about this. How do you PR this movie, right? And even though we tried to make something very new, something very different, I felt that, they were, promoting this movie as like another one of Godzilla movies. And I knew that it's not going to work, if you do that. And I had so much fight with this, this, PR people of the Toho studio, but, I knew it's going to fail, but they never listened to me, and they did what they do, and it didn't make, it wasn't a big hit as it was expected, right? And I just felt like, this is like Jesus. No matter, I dedicated 2 years of my life, and in the end, this PR people, few PR people in this last 3 months make this movie fail. I mean, I felt that it's not fair. It's not fair. I just felt that this movie never got this movie should. I still feel like it deserves something much bigger than that. But when it came out in Japan, it was kind of a failure. It made some money, but not as we expected. So, but then so that's why that was kind of a trigger that I'm like, I'm done with the Japanese film industry. I have to go to my next battlefield, and I moved to LA, right? But then in this past 17 years, I get lot of interview like this, like every 3 months, couple months.
Yeah.
And when you're living in outside, you feel more love for Final Wars, which which really saved me. I'm like, okay, I think I did the right thing. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is that like here in America, we have the Godzilla conventions and stuff, but it seems like that's one that a lot of kids discover when they're really young. Because like when I go and I see kids buying Godzilla toys, like they always have Final Wars toys, so the audience is there.
I know, so that's very grateful, to know that, in this last 17 years, yeah.
Well, it's like you said.
Another thing. Oh, Steve, may I?
Right.
Okay. Another thing that wasn't really intentional is that you may have the last Godzilla movie to really use a lot of miniatures and suits. The American movies are obviously CG, but even Shin Godzilla, that was almost entirely CG effects. So your movie could be like the last of an entire era of Japanese kind of tokusatsu effects films for Godzilla.
I mean, I knew that that times were changing, and when they reboot the Godzilla, it's going to be all CGs. I knew it. That's why I was determined to do old school man in suit and the miniature, because that's the tradition and that's what you respect, and that's what made Godzilla franchise last for 50 years. So I knew that I will be the last to do that. So I'm very happy to that I did that.
Well, thank you so very much for this time. We appreciate you, especially like we said, taking time out of your work schedule to meet with us.
That's fine.
Yeah, and we wish you the best of luck on your current project. Is there anything you can say about it? It sounds like it's
not really. It's a pretty big movie, but it's a completely different. I've never done this type of movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, no monster, no blood and violence.
Really? Oh, interesting.
It's very like a fantasy drama kind of, but this is my passion project, and I know we're feeling very good. Me and my crew and my cast, we're very proud of what we're doing. So yeah.
Well, best of luck to you.
And you just wrapped the film with Emil Hirsch. Is that something that you can plug yet? I mean, do you have any idea when we might be able to check it out or anything like that?
Yeah, probably it's going to come out next year. I'm also working while I'm shooting this movie. I'm working on the edit, and we are about to finish the edit, so it's going to be completed.
Does it have a U.S. distributor?
I don't know. I mean, the producers are working on it, so no, it's going to be a fun movie. That movie is 100% my movie. Crazy, brutal, violence, blood and guts, kind of movie. Yeah.
All right. Cool. I don't know. Do you know if Mick and those folks are doing another? What was it? Nightmare Cinema?
Yeah, I mean they're talking about doing the part 2, whatever, but that's going to be with a different director.
They probably want different voices. Okay, interesting. All right, cool. Well, no, this has been awesome. Again, thanks so much. Like we know you're working in a million things right now, so your time is really appreciated here.
Well, we'll sign off. Thanks so much for being part of Kaiju Masterclass, And to all of you out there, thanks for watching. And stay tuned to our YouTube channel, our Facebook, and KaijuMasterclass.com all weekend for all the programming that we have to offer. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Bye.